I've lived in Aurora, Colorado my whole life. Not the newer side with the chain restaurants and polished subdivisions. I mean the part where the mobile homes sit back behind everything, like a forgotten little grid of rusted metal and dirt yards. We weren't invisible, just ignored. Most people only remembered us as somewhere they passed through once, probably without meaning to. Growing up there, you learned early on to entertain yourself. My mom worked a lot, and by the time I was 13, she trusted me enough to be out with my friends during the day. We'd hang around the neighborhood, playing soccer with a half-flat ball, tagged between the trailers, just trying to stay busy and stay out of trouble. There was plenty of bad shit around us, and I think we all kind of understood that we were too young to fully escape it, but too stubborn to fall into it just yet. One day, I got bored of the usual. I remember asking my friends if they wanted to do something different, explore a little instead of running the same tired laps around the park. They were down, so we walked toward the back end of the trailer park. That area always felt different. Nobody went there. Not the other kids, not the dogs that roamed around, not even the raccoons that tore through trash bins at night. It was quiet, undisturbed. There was this dirt path back there, half covered in little thorns that scratched at your socks and ankles. If you kept following it, it would lead you to this old, cracked well. I don't even know how long it had been there. Nobody ever talked about it. It looked abandoned, overgrown weeds all around, dry stone, and this rusted metal grating over the top. A few feet beyond that, you'd hit the creek, the kind nobody fishes in. It was full of graffiti, soggy trash, old clothes left behind by the homeless, and God knows what else rotting under the surface. I remember peering into the well that day and noticing something odd. There were bars inside, like some kind of makeshift ladder leading down. I was always the dumb one when it came to curiosity. I thought maybe it'd just be a cool spot to check out. So I started climbing down, expecting it to dead end after a few feet. I figured maybe I could just stand at the bottom, look around, and climb back up. But I was wrong. At the base of the well, there was a tunnel, narrow, damp, and stretching out toward the creek. You couldn't see much, except a faint hint of light at the far end. I pulled out the flashlight I always kept in my hoodie pocket. My friends were already getting bored and told me they were gonna head out, but I said screw it. I was already halfway in, and I figured if nothing else, I'd have a story to tell. So I kept walking. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. Not just the usual quiet. This was something else. Like sound didn't work right down there. My own footsteps started to feel distant, muffled, and everything smelled like rot and standing water. Trash bags lined the sides of the tunnel. Old, ripped-up clothes were scattered everywhere, and broken shoes were half buried in the mud. Then I saw it. Lying just off to the side of the path was a goat's head. Real, decaying, the skin sliding off in places. It was face down in the muck, but I could still see the curved horn and the clumped fur, stiff with dried blood. It didn't even register at first. I just froze. I stood there, staring, trying to process whether I was really looking at what I thought I was. And that's when I heard the whisper. A kid's voice. Close. Too close. I couldn't make out the words, but it was soft and broken, like someone trying not to cry. It hit me all at once, the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. Like something had noticed me. Like something had been waiting. The air felt colder. Heavier. The darkness in that tunnel didn't feel empty anymore. I backed away, keeping my flashlight steady, but it barely made a dent in the black ahead of me. I kept walking toward the creek exit, but my heart was pounding hard now, and I could feel the panic starting to creep in. When I finally reached the end of the tunnel and stepped out into the open air, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like I'd just walked out of a nightmare that was still watching me from behind. I realized then just how far I'd come from the well entrance. I didn't want to go back through the tunnel again. So I took the long way around, circling through the woods and over the creek bridge. I was halfway home when I heard it. A scream. Faint, far away, but unmistakable. A sharp, quick cry that echoed through the trees. I didn't wait to figure out where it came from. I just ran. Full speed. I didn't stop until I hit the steps of my trailer and slammed the door behind me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the goat's head. I heard the whisper. I replayed the scream over and over in my head. I kept thinking about how my friends had left. About how cold it felt down there. How silent. It wasn't just fear, it was the sense that I had found something I wasn't supposed to find. And then, at 2:33 a.m., I did something I still can't explain. I went back. I told myself I just wanted to see if anything had changed, if the tunnel was still open, or if the goat head was still there. I didn't expect much. It had only been a few hours. But the closer I got, the darker it seemed to get. Not just outside, but in my chest, in my head. It felt heavier somehow. When I turned the last bend and saw the clearing by the well, I stopped dead in my tracks. There were 3 figures in black, standing in a triangle with their arms raised. The only light came from a small fire between them. I couldn't see their faces. I couldn't hear the words, but they were chanting something low, rhythmic, in a language I didn't understand. And surrounding the well were markings, drawn into the dirt, painted on the stone, lit up by the flicker of the fire. Symbols, circles, some kind of writing. I didn't know what it meant, but it clicked. The goat's head wasn't just trash. It wasn't some accident. It was a sacrifice. I felt sick, frozen, like my body refused to listen to my brain. I wanted to understand what I was seeing, but all I really felt was that I needed to get out right now. I backed away slowly, careful not to snap a branch or crunch a leaf. Then, once I hit the edge of the dirt path, I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I was back on the concrete road, and even then I didn't slow down. I never told my friends. I never told anyone. Not until now. I'm 19 now. Just yesterday, I went back, not inside the well, but to see if it was still there. It is. But now it's sealed shut with a thick metal lid, bolted down at every edge. The exit by the creek is covered 2 metal bars welded into the concrete, keeping anyone from going in or coming out. But sometimes, when I walk past that place on the way to visit my grandma, if I stop and really listen, I swear I can still hear that same scream, buried somewhere in the trees. I used to do overnight security gigs on the side when I was in college. It was decent money if you didn't mind being bored out of your mind half the time. Most of it was just sitting around in an empty building, checking doors, maybe filing a report if a raccoon got too close to the dumpsters. Back in 2018, I landed a job working a private wedding event at Redstone Castle in Manitou Springs, Colorado. If you've never heard of it, look it up. It's this huge historic estate built into the side of the mountain. Gothic arches, stone staircases, rooms that felt like museums. The kind of place where rich people have small weddings that cost more than most of us make in a year. The event was a 3-day affair, Friday to Sunday. I was assigned to Saturday night, 12-hour shift, midnight to noon. My job was to stay in the lobby and monitor all the interior and exterior feeds, patrol the hallways once every 2 hours, and make sure none of the guests wandered off or got into places they weren't supposed to be. For the first 6 hours, nothing happened. The wedding was beautiful, candlelit, formal, very quiet. The guests were mostly older, very well dressed, and very drunk by the time they finally cleared out of the ballroom. After about 11:30 p.m., most had gone to their rooms or taken shuttles back into town. By 1 a.m., it was just me, the front desk staffer sleeping in the side office, and maybe a handful of guests still milling around upstairs. I did my first round through the main halls, checked the kitchens, the fire exits. Everything looked good. The castle felt eerie in that late-night silence, though. The halls are so wide and old that every little step echoes. It's easy to feel like you're being followed, even when you know you're not. Around 1:45, I was back at the monitors, eating from a bag of gas station pretzels, when I saw someone come into frame on the main staircase camera. A woman in a pale blue dress, barefoot, walking slowly down the hall on the second floor. Nothing too unusual, but it stood out because most guests were already in bed. I checked the time, 1:47 a.m. I followed her through the next 2 camera angles. She passed the library, the reading lounge, then took a turn down the east wing, a section that wasn't being used for the wedding. That part of the castle had been sealed off for repairs years ago. It wasn't dangerous, but there was no reason for anyone to be there. The lights were off, and the hallway just led to a dead end. Except, she never came back. I watched the feed for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Nothing. I switched cameras again, thinking maybe I missed her on a side hallway. But no, she just vanished off screen and never returned. I tried radioing the front desk girl, but she was still asleep in the chair. So I decided to check it out myself. I took the east wing staircase up to the second floor. Everything looked normal, dusty, dark, silent. The kind of silent that makes your own heartbeat feel like it's echoing. I walked the length of the hallway to the exact spot where she'd gone off screen. There was nothing. No door. No corner to turn. Just a flat wall, some old wallpaper peeling off near the floor. I even knocked on it, half-jokingly. It was solid brick underneath. But I swear to God, the woman never turned around. She never left. And she definitely didn't pass back the way she came. I double-checked all the cameras. She was just gone. I wrote it down in my hourly log, even though I knew it would sound stupid. 1:47 a.m., guest in blue dress entered East Hallway, did not return. Investigated. No activity. I figured maybe she'd gone into one of the storage rooms and come out later when I wasn't watching. Or maybe I just missed her entirely. Tried to forget about it. But around 3:30 a.m., one of the groom's friends came downstairs in a panic, asking if anyone had seen his cousin, Elena. Said she left her room around 1:30 and never came back. I asked what she was wearing. He said, blue dress. Light blue, like sky blue. I walked him to the monitors and showed him the footage. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he just said, yeah, that's her, and sat down with his head in his hands. By 5 a.m., we'd searched the entire castle. Every hallway, every unused room. Her phone was still in her room. Her purse, too. Door had been locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry, nothing suspicious. Like she just got up and left with nothing. When the police showed up later that morning, I told them everything I saw. I even pulled up the feed. But this is where things got strange. The footage was gone. Not all of it, just the segment between 1:40 and 2:10 a.m. on that particular camera. It had been corrupted, or maybe overwritten. It just cut from one empty hallway to the same hallway still empty 30 minutes later. Nothing in between. They interviewed me, said it was probably a glitch. Maybe the woman wandered out a side exit. Maybe she fell down a hill or got into someone's car. But there were no other sightings. No credit card activity. Nothing. Elena was never found. The wedding ended on Sunday. Everyone left early. The family was devastated. The groom looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. The castle refunded a chunk of the booking cost and quietly let the whole thing get swept under the rug. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. A few days later, I went back on my own. I'd made friends with one of the maintenance guys during the event, and he let me poke around in some of the old archive rooms. Redstone Castle kept all these guest books, newspaper clippings, event logs from as far back as the early 1900s. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, just chasing something to make it make sense. And then I found it. A photo tucked into the back of a guest registry from 1927. Black and white, faded with age. It was from a wedding taken in front of the east staircase. And in the middle row, I swear to you, stood a woman in a light blue dress. Same face, same hair, same expression. Elena. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. But there she was, standing with a group of strangers from almost 100 years ago. I told myself it had to be someone who looked like her. A coincidence. But something about her posture, her face, even the slight blur in the photo, it made my stomach drop. I was going to let it go. I really was. Until one night, a few weeks later, I got a text from that maintenance guy. It was a blurry photo of a crawl space he'd found behind the east wing wall. He'd been doing some wiring repairs when he found a narrow panel that popped loose. Inside, there was a hidden room. No light, no furniture, just chains mounted to the floor, and a pale blue dress, torn and stuffed behind a rotted beam. That was the last time I ever stepped foot in that building. I quit the security gig not long after. Redstone Castle still runs weddings. They've remodeled most of the interior now, installed new cameras, sealed up the east wing for good. But I know what I saw. I know what I found. And sometimes, when I think about it too long, I wonder how many others went missing over the years. How many people stepped into that hallway and never came out? I used to believe that some places just held on to echoes of the past. Now I think some of them hold on to people too. I used to think ghost towns were just dusty tourist traps, places you'd stop at on a road trip to grab a snack, snap a few pictures, and leave 10 minutes later with dirt on your shoes. Buckskin Joe was one of those places. An old Western-style town out in Park County, Colorado, about an hour past anything resembling civilization. My little brother and I first saw it during a camping trip with our dad when we were kids, back before it was shut down. We walked the wooden boardwalks and took pictures next to the fake gallows. It was all pretty harmless. But the last time we were there, it wasn't part of a family vacation. It wasn't even planned. That was in late summer, 2017. I was 19. My brother, Julian, had just turned 16. We were staying at a primitive campsite maybe 5 miles out. No service, no lights, just firewood, one flashlight between us, and a cooler full of garbage food we thought was good enough. We'd hiked most of the day and were about a mile away from our site when Julian suggested cutting across Buckskin Joe to save time. It was after 9 p.m., getting dark fast, but he insisted the old access road would get us back quicker. Said it was just a tourist park, no big deal. Besides, the place had been closed for years, completely abandoned. What could go wrong? I said sure. The sky was that weird shade of deep purple you only see right after the sun's disappeared behind the mountains. We walked the trail until it merged with a gravel road, then through a rusted gate held closed with a loose chain. No signs, no fencing, just quiet. Too quiet. I remember the way the wind died when we stepped onto the property. That sudden stillness. No birds, no bugs, nothing. Just the sound of our own shoes crunching gravel. We passed the sheriff's office, the blacksmith shop, then the old saloon. All the windows were dark. The buildings had that artificial front wall design, like movie sets built to look deeper than they were. I glanced inside one of the cracked windows and saw a table still set with fake poker chips and dusty whiskey glasses. Julian wanted to take a shortcut behind the livery stable to shave off a few more minutes. I told him we should stick to the main walkway and just get through it, but he was already 10 feet ahead of me, phone out, recording everything like it was a found footage film. I rolled my eyes and followed. That's when I noticed something strange. One of the lights was on inside the saloon. Just a single, flickering yellow bulb hanging over the bar. I asked Julian if he saw it too. He laughed and said it was probably solar-powered or left over from when the place still did tours. But I could tell by the way his voice dropped that he wasn't as casual about it as he tried to sound. We decided to pick up the pace. Still joking around, but walking faster. Our boots knocked against the old wooden planks of the walkway, and every creak felt way louder than it should have. We passed a general store, then a bank, then a barber's shack with a busted sign swinging above the door. We were maybe 100 feet from the back exit when I heard it. A click, like a door latch. I turned around and saw the swinging doors of the saloon had closed. I was sure they'd been open when we passed. I looked at Julian, and he looked at me, both of us frozen for a second too long. Then came another sound, a footstep, heavy, inside the building, followed by a soft thump. I told him we needed to go now. He nodded, and we started walking fast, then faster. Then we broke into a jog, heading for the backside of the church, where the old trail should have reconnected with the access road. But when we got there, the trail was gone. Not overgrown, gone. Like it had never existed. In its place was just a patch of packed dirt and brush. No clear path, no trail markers. Julian swore it had been there last time. I didn't answer. I just looked over my shoulder, back toward the center of town, and saw the schoolhouse door was now cracked open. It had been shut before. That's when Julian said he left his phone back near the stable. He wanted to go back for it. I told him forget it, we'd come back during the day, but he was already turning around. I offered to come with him, but he insisted he'd be 2 minutes. Said to stay where I was so we didn't both get lost. I let him go. That was the last time I saw him, at least, for the next few hours. I waited there behind the church. 2 minutes turned into 5, then 10. I called out for him. No answer. I walked back toward the livery area, but it was empty. Silent. No footprints in the dirt. No movement. I tried checking the buildings, one by one, but the doors that had been open were now locked. Every single one. I started panicking. Really panicking. I didn't have my phone. I left it in the tent like an idiot. I circled the entire town twice, calling for Julian, checking windows, trying doorknobs. Every building was sealed tight. The whole place felt like it had swallowed him. Then I heard a noise, a dragging sound, coming from inside the old jailhouse. The lights were off, but I could see movement through the slit in the wall where the wood had warped. Something shifting slowly in the darkness. I didn't go in. I wish I could say I did, that I was brave. But I turned and ran. I ran out of that town, down the highway shoulder, all the way back to our campsite. Took me almost an hour. I nearly broke my ankle twice in the dark, but I didn't care. I got back, grabbed my phone, and called the sheriff. They found Julian at 5:17 a.m. He was sitting behind the stable, curled up against the back wall with his phone still in his hand, but the screen had been shattered. He had a gash on his cheek and wouldn't answer questions. Just stared ahead, shaking. He wouldn't say where he went. Wouldn't say what happened. The paramedics said he was in shock. He spent 2 nights in the hospital, then another week barely speaking. He still won't talk about it, not even to me. Whatever happened in Buckskin Joe that night, whoever was in those buildings, turning on lights, locking doors, they didn't want us there. And I swear, when I drive through Park County now and past that stretch of road where the ghost town used to sit, I can still feel it watching. We were just trying to get back to the car. But some places, they don't let you leave that easy. Pikes Peak is one of those drives you don't forget. If you've ever been up the toll road, you know how it is. Steep, winding, no guardrails in some sections, just a two-lane stretch hugging the mountain with sheer drop-offs and barely enough room for error. People love it for the view, the adrenaline, the bragging rights. But locals? We drive it differently. I used to take that road at night, not for fun, but out of necessity. I worked a maintenance job one summer up at the Summit Cafe, and we'd get split shifts that sometimes ended well after dark. Most of the other guys carpooled, but I liked having my own ride. I didn't mind the night. I knew the road. This happened in August of 2020, right before the season ended. My buddy Nate had picked up a short-term gig working trail crew, and we decided to ride down together that night to save gas. The weather had been clear all day, no storms, no fog. Around 10:30 p.m., we packed up our stuff, locked up, and started the drive back to the base. The first few miles were fine, quiet. I had the window cracked and a podcast playing low on the dash. Nate was half asleep in the passenger seat, feet on the dash, hoodie over his face. The road was empty, like it always was that time of night. I think we passed maybe one other car coming up, some rental SUV full of tourists who probably started the driveway too late. Then, just after we passed mile marker 12, everything went wrong. The engine didn't stall, it just cut. 1 second I was cruising at 25 miles per hour, and the next the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. RPM dropped to 0. Power steering died. Headlights flickered once, then held. It was like someone pulled the plug from underneath the car. I threw it in neutral and coasted to the side. There's not much shoulder that high up, so I had to half-hug the gravel. Killed the emergency flashers and tried the ignition again. Nothing. Just a hollow click. No turnover. Nate sat up, rubbed his eyes. What happened? I didn't answer right away. I was too busy flipping through everything I could think of: electrical, battery, fuel pump. The car wasn't old. It had never done this before. I told him the engine was dead. He got out to check under the hood while I pulled out my phone. No bars. Not even a flicker of signal. Nate had no service either. We both had different carriers. That stretch of the toll road usually had at least one bar, even at night. But there was nothing. Just SOS only flashing at the top of the screen. We stood there in the dark for a while, just listening. The mountain was dead silent. No crickets. No wind. Nothing. Let's walk downhill, I said finally. We'll hit the ranger station in a few miles. Nate hesitated. We're at marker 12. Isn't the call box near 10? I nodded. It was one of those old metal emergency boxes built into the pull-off rail. Solar-powered, I think. Not many people use them anymore, but they're supposed to work even if your phone doesn't. We debated leaving the car, but eventually decided we had no choice. I grabbed a flashlight from the glove box. Nate had a headlamp in his backpack. We locked the car, stashed our phones, and started walking. That was the last normal moment of the night. About 10 minutes down the road, Nate stopped. I turned and saw him looking over the guardrail. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I didn't. Not at first. But after a few seconds, I caught it too. Footsteps. Light, slow, crunching gravel behind us. I whipped the flashlight around. Nothing. We waited. Silence again. "Maybe it's just rocks shifting," Nate said. But his voice didn't sound convinced. We kept going. Every few minutes, we'd hear it again. Footsteps behind us. Always far enough back that we couldn't quite see who it was. I called out once, thinking maybe a ranger had found our car and was catching up. No answer. Then, just after we rounded a bend, Nate stopped again. He looked pale. "Dude," he said, "I think I dropped my headlamp." I asked how. He said he must have taken it off and forgotten. We argued for a minute about whether we should go back or not. He was stubborn. He said it was expensive and we still had time before the station. Eventually, we agreed to split for just 5 minutes. He'd jog back, I'd keep going to the call box, and we'd meet at the pull-off near mile 11. It sounded stupid, but it made sense at the time. I watched him disappear back up the curve, headlamp swinging in his hand. That was the last time I saw him. I walked fast, checked the box at mile 11. Broken. The receiver was ripped out. Wires hanging. I kept going, nerves on edge now. At marker 10, I reached the next call box. This one worked. I called emergency dispatch, gave them our location, told them the car had died and my friend was missing. They said they'd send a patrol up immediately. I waited. No sign of Nate. I stood there for 20 minutes. 30. Nothing. I finally started walking back uphill toward where I'd left him, flashlight darting through the dark trees. I shouted his name over and over. No answer. Just silence. Then, halfway between mile 11 and 12, I found something in the middle of the road. His headlamp. But the strap had been snapped. Torn, not broken. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the patrol truck when they arrived, gave my statement, watched as they searched both sides of the road with dogs and lights. They found nothing. Not a single trace of him. No blood, no clothing, no signs of a fall. It was like he'd never turned around. Like he'd just stepped off the road and vanished. They filed the report as a missing person. Said maybe he got disoriented and fell into the trees. But there were no impact signs. No broken branches. And besides, we knew that road. We hiked it weekly. I went back 3 times that month. On foot. Alone. At mile 12, the car was eventually towed out. It started fine once they got it back to the base. No issues. Mechanics found nothing wrong. The electrical system was perfectly intact. To this day, I still wonder what really happened. I think about that sound. Those slow footsteps following behind us. Always out of reach. Always one bend back. And sometimes, when I drive that road now, even with music on and the windows rolled down, I still glance in the mirror around mile 12, just to make sure I'm still the only one on the road. Tools. Growing up in Colorado Springs, my mom worked night shifts as a custodian at the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind. She was a single parent and couldn't always afford a sitter, so sometimes she'd bring me along after school and I'd hang out in the teacher break room or library while she cleaned. The place was calm after dark. Too calm, really. Long, polished hallways and old creaky floors that echoed with every step. The school is historic, beautiful in the daytime, but something else entirely once the sun went down. Big arched windows, thick doors, and rooms that hadn't been updated in decades. It felt more like an old hospital than a school. I was 13 the first time I stayed there past 10 p.m. Mom always gave me the same rules. Stay on the main floor, don't go near the dorm wings, and never go upstairs. The second floor was off limits, always. I figured it was just because they didn't want kids wandering into the administrative offices or breaking something in the old music rooms. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. It was late, maybe 10:45. My mom had gone to clean the gym, which was at the far end of the building and always took her the longest. I had already eaten, already gone through my homework, and was just wandering the halls, bored out of my mind. I found myself standing at the bottom of the east stairwell, the one near the old Braille printing lab. I looked up. Total silence. That part of the building had a different feel to it. Older. Heavier. The air even smelled different, like dry paper and dust that had settled decades ago and never left. I told myself I'd just go to the top of the stairs and peek. Nothing crazy. Just check it out. But once I reached the landing, I noticed something weird. The first door to the left had a number on it. Room 205. I don't know why that stuck out to me. Maybe because I'd seen a building map in the main office once when I was helping restock shelves. I remembered the rooms upstairs being numbered in the 300s. The second floor was supposed to be part of the dormitory wing, not the classroom section. But there it was, plain brass numbers. 205. I stepped closer. The door was slightly ajar. Not wide open, just enough that I could see the edge of a desk inside. No lights. Just the faint glow of the exit sign from the end of the hallway reflecting off the tile. I pushed it open. What I saw didn't look like any classroom I'd ever been in. It was empty, completely stripped. No chairs. No whiteboard. No shelves. Just an old wooden teacher's desk in the middle of the room, like someone had put it there decades ago and forgotten it. But here's the thing that still messes with me. There was a coat hanging on the back of the chair. A dark navy wool coat, like something a teacher would have worn in the 1940s. And next to the desk on the ground, there was a small cane folded neatly against the leg, the kind that blind students use to navigate. Everything else was spotless. No dust. No cobwebs. Just those two things, as if someone had left them there earlier that day. I took a step inside. The floor creaked, not loud, but sharp, like it was reacting to me. I froze. Something about the silence in that room felt wrong. It wasn't just quiet. It was insulated, like all the air had been sucked out. I turned back toward the door. That's when I heard it. A knock. 3 slow knocks. Not from behind me from the hallway. I whipped around. Nobody was there. I stepped out, heart racing, and looked both directions. Empty. Completely still. I looked back into the room. The coat was gone. The cane was still there, but the chair was now pulled out from the desk, like someone had just stood up. I didn't wait. I turned and ran back down the stairs 2 steps at a time, heart pounding, legs shaking. I ran straight into my mom as she was wheeling a mop bucket out of the gym. She saw my face and froze. What happened? I told her everything. The door, the room, the coat, the knocks. I expected her to scold me for disobeying her or to call me dramatic, but instead, her expression changed. Not angry, worried. You went upstairs, she asked. I nodded. To room 205? I nodded again. She didn't say anything right away. She just sighed and told me to sit in the break room and wait. The rest of the night, she didn't say a word. And she didn't bring me back to work with her again for almost 3 weeks. Eventually, I asked her what that room was. She hesitated, then told me what she knew, or rather, what she heard from another custodian who'd worked there for over 30 years. Room 205 wasn't supposed to exist. When the dorm wings were remodeled in the late 80s, that space had been closed off, along with a few unused offices. On the official map, there is no room 205. The number was retired after an incident involving a teacher and a student, a blind boy who'd gone missing one night after evening class. They said he'd been seen entering a classroom after hours, but when staff went to check, the door wouldn't open. By the time they got it forced open, the room was empty. The teacher's coat was still on the chair. The boy's cane was found lying next to it. Neither of them were ever found. It wasn't publicized. The school handled it quietly, removed the room from the records, and sealed the hallway during renovations. But some of the night staff, especially the older ones, claimed they'd still hear knocks coming from upstairs. And occasionally, room 205's door would be found open, even though it wasn't supposed to be accessible at all. I didn't believe it, not all of it, anyway, until a few years later, when I was a senior in high school. One afternoon, our class did a field trip to tour the historical buildings on campus. As we passed the admin wing, I noticed something new on the wall, a framed floor plan diagram labeled Original Building Layout, 1954. I stopped and looked closely. Room 205 was on it, clear as day, and as we moved on, I glanced back down the hallway, toward the old stairwell. The door at the top was cracked open again, same as it was all those years ago, and I swear to this day, I saw the edge of a navy blue coat disappear into the room just as I turned away.